What's up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of my Forester build. Now if you haven't been keeping up, go check out the last couple of videos that we posted. If you've seen them, I'll give you a little reminder of what I was doing last time, and really that was all about taking a bunch of the AC components out of this car. At the end of the build, I really want a stripped out clean bay, and so that's part of it, taking out all the unneeded accessories that I can. I was also working on kind of mocking up, fitting some of the front mount intercooler piping, since all of it's gonna have to be custom, and especially with the reverse manifold. So that's all good, but I do want to take a little bit of a break away from the engine bay and start doing some exterior stuff. Now, on the exterior, you know that I've done the front bumper. I haven't gotten to the rear one just yet. It's been sitting around right there. So I think it's time that I pull the rear one off. I've got a diffuser and all sorts of stuff underneath that's gonna have to come off with it. And then on the side of the car, I'm gonna be upgrading to the smooth panels here. So these have to come off. And then I've just ordered a set of side skirts that I will tell you a little bit more about, but these have to come off as well. So I'm gonna get started on that stuff, and then we'll kind of see where the next couple of days takes us. I don't know where this episode's gonna go yet, but I think this is a good place to start. Just how huge this manta ray looking diffuser is, but it's testament to the lowness of the car. You can see that I knocked a chunk off that I didn't know about, and some scraping and stuff here, and that wasn't even what I would consider the low part. A lot of my suspension underneath and chassis stuff is pretty scraped up just like this. So if you're ever thinking about lowering your car, this is what you have to look forward to. So the bumper came off relatively easy. The hardest part was a mistake that I made, which is putting the Forester on jack stands where I put it. I tried to give myself some more space up front to work on the engine, but I didn't think about the hatch having to come up and contacting the garage door. Now it's freezing outside, so I didn't want to open it up and let all this wonderful heated air go out. I think the next step is going to be throwing this JDM bumper on, just mocking it up, seeing how it looks. Again, taking those headlights off, and then hopefully it's a warmer day tomorrow, pop the hatch all the way with the door open, get that spoiler off, and then we'll see where it takes us. What I initially thought was going to be an issue with those custom exhaust tips I have and fitment on the JDM bumper ended up being an issue with the actual bumper bar. So I pulled that along with the bumper cover, which you can see is burnt to an absolute crisp here. I guess I'm lucky that it didn't set the rest of the car on fire with how close the exhaust was to that. So that's awesome. The other awesome thing is the look of the JDM bumper on this car. It's so much more aggressive than the OEM, even when I had the diffuser and some of the add-ons. It hangs a lot lower, it's sleeker, and it's an overall awesome look. Especially I'm picturing the wheels on it, I'm picturing the center exterior stuff that I ordered, and that larger spoiler all kind of coming together to form a really aggressive look, and maybe admittedly a little bit more aggressive than I initially intended with this build.
Meanwhile, back in the lowlands.
One of the best things about getting parts shipped to work is you never know when they're going to show up. So during the middle of the workday, when you're getting some stuff done, something like this can show up out of nowhere. At first, I didn't know what it was until I recognized the shape and realized that it was from the glorious nation of Kazakhstan.
Nice.
But it should be my spoiler from Forester parts. Now, if you guys haven't checked them out on Instagram, they're a page I follow. They do a lot of parts for SF5 and SG Foresters, a lot of things that you can't get elsewhere, both authentic stuff, and they have some reproduction, and then some custom things like the spoiler here. So I haven't seen one in real life ever, so I'm excited to take it out of the packaging, which, speaking of, is really nice packaging. Shout out to Forester Parts for packaging it so well in this big foam kind of container. I'm really confident that it's all there. It's all in one piece, but I guess we don't know until we pop it open right now. Well, I'm just getting home after work, and truthfully, I've been excited all day long ever since I got this spoiler in the morning, really to see how it's going to fit up on the car. Now, with small batch or kind of custom stuff, you never know what the fitment's going to be like. With OE, on the other hand, like the spoiler right here, it came off another Forester, so I knew that once I drilled into my hatch, it would fit perfectly. With this, it's a bit more of a question mark. There's so much more going on. The mounting locations could be a little bit different. We don't really know until we try it, so that's what I'm about to do. So the overall install went pretty well. I only had to make a couple slight modifications, like drilling out the mounting locations, and considering it's one big piece of fiberglass that really doesn't have any flex to it, that's a small price to pay for good fitment. And speaking of, you can see that it's even across the hatch, and probably a little harder to see, but it does contour super well around the back and up at the top, which is kind of hard to get. There's a lot of dimensions to this hatch. So since the install for the rear spoiler and the wiper delete went so well, I figured we would keep chugging along with the exterior modifications. And the next thing I want to tackle is the roof rail delete. Now you can see it's just a empty channel in here right now, and that's because I took off the factory roof rails, which if you haven't seen them, they're pretty ugly. Functionally, they're good if you're running like a cargo rack or a bike carrier, but for me, I want to go for a sleek look. So what I really want to do is fill this channel in to be flush with the top of the car. And from some of the DIYs I found for other models, people have been doing that with fiberglass. I haven't really worked with fiberglass, so it's going to be kind of a good learning lesson for me, and we'll see how it turns out. But at the end of it, I should have a flush removable piece that I can paint to match and kind of have everything looking good. So the first step in that is to lay some painter's tape down so the fiberglass doesn't stick to the paint, and then we'll see what we can do with the fiberglass kit that I bought. Well, I've got the fiberglass mat all cut into the sizes that I need. I did some various widths, that way I can start with the bottom and work my way up, and hopefully that's enough to fill that channel. But truthfully, I am not super confident that it's going to be enough fiberglass. It might get me about 70% of the way there, and I'll probably have to step out and get more of this stuff, but I do want to get started. Now, what they say about fiberglass is true. It's incredibly messy and itchy, even though I'm wearing some good protection. It's getting all over the place. My knees are itching from kneeling down on it. So, not the best stuff to work with, and that's probably why I've avoided actually working with it in the past. So, hopefully it goes a little bit smoother from here. The next step for me is to mix the resin and the hardener, and then get started on laying the first couple of layers. Getting to the point where I've got the first layer laid and I'm gonna let it dry. That way when it's hard, I can drill some holes through it and feed some hardware through before I put the top layers on. It's been a few hours now, so the resin should be all dry, and it is nice and hard. So I did start peeling it back just a little bit, and I wanna pop this off to be able to drill the holes into it. So let's start from the back here, and hopefully it pops up without breaking. All right, actually that was pretty good, and it came off with some of the tape underneath, which I should be able to peel off, but what's kind of nice about that is I have the marked drill holes right there that I can drill through for the bolts. So I'm gonna do that right now before I peel that off, and then we'll kind of take a look at this piece a little more closely. Using that tape that I had left over as a template, I drilled holes through and then fed a couple of bolts all the way through. I'll show you, they go in pretty nicely. I drilled a hole deliberately a little bit smaller than it needed to be. That way it puts a little pressure on those bolts from backing out. And I'll probably throw a little glue on them too before I put a secondary layer over the top so that they stay in place when I bolt it from underneath. But overall, that part turned out pretty good. I'm curious to see if it'll go on the car. So why don't we try that out? And fits like a, hold on, glove. I got one more bolt to put in after that, but so far so good. Really the next step is laying that second layer of fiberglass over the top and starting to fill that little channel more and more until it gets to the top, and then sanding it all down. So I don't have enough fiberglass as I guessed to do that, but I do have enough to keep going to at least cover these up for now. Well, check it out. We finally got something that's starting to look like a roof rail delete. I put the second layer of fiberglass on this morning, and so now it's nice and hard, and you just saw me cutting off the excess around the ends, and it's looking pretty good. Now, it is a little bit above the profile of the car, which is exactly where I wanted it, because now we can come in and start sanding this flush to the top of the car. Even though this is a relatively small piece, I have had a lot of work go into this already. I've probably put in about 5 hours worth of actually laying it and then different stages of sanding. But it's gotten into this point where it's got a smooth top and it's flush to the top of the car. Now, depending on how much of a perfectionist you are, you could spend the rest of your life making this a little bit more perfect than it is, but I think it's good enough. On camera, it's probably gonna look pretty good, and in person, it's definitely passable. So right now, the next step is to fill in a lot of these little holes and imperfections that are there, and really that's gonna be the job of the Bondo body filler. So I'm gonna mix up a bit of that and then lay the kind of final top coat, and then eventually when that's dry, hopefully all we're gonna have to do is sand it over the top, and then I'll have a nice smooth piece. But so far I'm happy with it. It's just taken a long time to get to this point. Well, I'm happy to say that I'm pretty much finished up with the driver's side roof rail delete. Now, this took days and days of coming out to the garage, laying Bondo, sanding, and then rinse and repeating that whole process until I got something that was very smooth and even all across the board. The next step is to throw some primer on, and this will reveal any other major imperfections, but it'll also be one of the last steps before I actually get this painted with the rest of the car eventually. So let's throw a layer of this on and then just see how it looks after it dries. Well, I've got the first thin coat of primer on the roof rail delete, and it's pretty dry, so I thought I'd throw it up on the car and show you guys what it looks like. Now, overall, I'm pretty happy with it, except once I put the primer on, it did reveal some imperfections in the form of pinholes. Overall, I'd say it is pretty good. It's, you know, 97, 98% of the way there. If it was on my drift car, I probably wouldn't even worry about that. But because it's more of the show car, because especially this piece is going to be at eye level once this car is on the ground, I am worried about little things like that. And I kind of want to give it my all before it gets a finishing coat of primer and then paint eventually. So I am going to take the extra step. It is going to add a little bit of work. It means more sanding than doing it on the other side, but I think it's well worth the effort. It looks like the putty did a pretty good job of filling those holes, but we won't find out until I spray it with a little bit more primer and let it dry. So that's gonna be the last thing I do today, and then come back in the morning and see exactly how we did. I'm assuming there's gonna be some touch up, but I am pretty optimistic that I got most of the pinholes taken care of. So let's finish this out, call it a night, and check back in the morning. All right, I'm happy to say that I am all finished up with the Forester Roof Rail Delete project. Now, overall, the positive thing about this project is not only is it done, but it's taught me a lot of skills, fiberglass skills, Bondo skills,
nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills,
and kind of some attention to detail type things. And that's going to translate into future projects and other stuff I'm working on right now. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of enjoyment, entertainment from my misery being covered in fiberglass dust and Bondo dust and all this stuff for the last couple of weeks. Here is the final result.